1. Emails. 2. Meetings. 3. Tasks slash new projects. 4. Work times. 5. Breaks. 6. DMs and direct communication. And 7. Networking times. Those are the 7 things you need to have a balance in your day. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the fourth ever Cyclo Talk in English. And today we're going to be tackling a question that many people is having, especially adapting to this new way of working. There is a lot of pressure rising on whatever your work field is. So the main question we have been hearing is how you work under pressure. And for that, I brought today a special guest that I would say has an expertise working under pressure, a long time expertise on that. Her name is Andrea Dorta. She's currently a technical program manager at Amazon Robotics, but previously she worked for a Forbes Tech startup in Munich, and she also worked for Bose Corporation and also Amazon Robotics. And she's a Galante Fellow. She really likes to be between the industrial engineering part and business part of the business. And she has a lot of experience working under pressure. So without saying more, let's go deeper into conversation with one first question. Andrea, tell me, so how's your week going? Do you feel any pressure right now in this week? And what is the most pressure time you had in your life? So yeah, tell me a good example of anything that you think is gonna get the conversation started.
Sure thing. So first of all, thank you, Luis, for having me in this side flow conversations. I feel like it's a really nice, way to connect with other young professionals or people that are seeking advice. So on that, I would say that this week has been one of the most complex weeks I've ever had. Um, so I started working for Amazon Robotics on July 6th. So this was my fifth week. And I was also dealing with some personal things, like I was moving out from my apartment and moving into a new one. So, you don't have that weekend to kind of like catch up with anything work related or like read any emails or, make like your agenda for Monday, for example, if you hadn't had the chance before. And for, I was like kind of tasked, I was voluntold on a Friday to lead a huge project, cross coordination with an Indian partner. And obviously that means that you need to work 9 or 10 hours ahead. And that just meant that that Monday, so the Monday after my weekend move in and move out process, I had to, get a lot of data ready and presented to this team. And obviously, if I weren't moving out or moving in, I would have more time during the weekend to kind of like devote myself and work on this, but I didn't. Um, so I feel like, working at this type of companies, they're like the expectations are really high. And there for sure sometimes where projects come and go and like needs are really urgent. So I found myself during this week kind of like having to deal with some deliverables that were like really meant to be delivered the day after or like within 2 hours or 3 hours. And I would say in those situations, you go under like extreme pressure because people are kind of like relying on your inputs. But like for me, it's super important to kind of like prioritize my time on like what's really really urgent and like what's 100% kind of like people rely on me, and based on that just like talk to a customer, in this case like this for example Indian team, and just be like, okay, so what are the needs, kind of like prepare before having that conversation and just make any type of pre-work um in order for you to like maximize that meeting. Like whenever you get to that meeting, having like an agenda ready, having like a document ready you can share with people, people can connect online and follow your thought, like your line of thought. That's something that working from home has like, put on a challenge. It's different for sure. Like a computer connection versus like a personal connection. So being like really strategic and really organized about what you need to cover in a meeting, it's super important.
Wow. Yeah, no, I can imagine a lot of pressure, but I love how you mentioned a couple of things. I heard prioritization, I heard pre-work, I heard a lot of trying to maintain as well the balance with, because here's the thing, you're gonna be under pressure, maybe in two sides. And this case for you was like both in work and in life. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would like definitely to go deeper. You mentioned something about understanding the deliverables, understanding the deliverables in order to prioritize, understanding like there's a different level of how important something is, like how much others people time are you affecting if you're not getting this done. So yeah, I would like to
Correct.
go deeper into what you think are your main steps into prioritization in terms of I have a bunch of tasks, a bunch of stuff to do. How do you think that you should first tackle that list in order to what I'm gonna do first?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that's something I've been, it's like a constant, I would say, it's a constant improvement of your strategy. I would say like that sometimes vary, obviously. And I would say in a by a week basis, it's more of, what are the, like as of today, what are the things that are coming up? And then kind of like aggregate those projects into a day basis, and obviously like having an agenda, like people would have an agenda for a day, like a personal agenda, like
Mm-hmm.
to do tasks, and just be like really realistic on that. But there's also sometimes where you can, people find interesting to use, instead of like an agenda, like a board, having like a Trello board, things that I'm working on right now, things that I need to get done, things are maybe like, falling through the cracks. um and depending on that, just like organize a priority. So for your, tackling your point about like how to prioritize, I would say there are different deliverables, as we discussed before, that affect different stakeholders. So I would say like anything that goes to leadership, it's like a straight away answer. Like if there's
Makes sense.
something in an email that a lot of like leaders are, or like high up managers are CC'd, you just need to like answer ASAP. And it's sometimes difficult because just, working from home has also brought up the complexity of being on a 5 to, I don't know, 5 to sorry, 8 to 5 p.m. Schedule, where you're constantly in meetings, and sometimes it's like back to back meetings. So how
Mm,
are you kind of like putting yourself on a meeting and being present and being actively collaborating, while at the same time there are pending things in your email inbox that you just need to like get, kind of like
mm,
respond to that email? So I would say it's like a combination, um, of understanding the priority. Like if I'm in a meeting but I see that they like this leadership, it's just like waiting for me to reply, I would kind of like zoom out, maybe like say on the chat of the meeting, like be right back 5 minutes, and just like focus on answering this email. um and if the email requires more than just me saying the update of something, and I just need to do something, I'll let leadership know, like I'm in a meeting right now. I'll
mm,
get back to you in the next 2 hours, or just give that kind of time frame where you can just let them know that you are gonna work on that and you're gonna be able to deliver by a specific time. That's just like for emails. But going back to your point, like how to prioritize daily tasks, I would say, yeah, like who's your customer? Like, is it leadership? Is it a peer? Um, is it part of a project? And then ask people, like, what's the drop dead date? Like, if I don't deliver something by, Friday, what's gonna happen? And then working
mm,
backwards from it, right? And then you're gonna be able to like, prioritize. There are times for sure that a lot of things need to, kind of like get by at the same date. So, and that way you'll see that maybe you're running out of hours in a day and you're like, wow, I really need to work on this because it's for tomorrow 8 a.m. And
mm,
those are the days where you need to stay. And that's a thing, like it's hard because I would say that in high intensity companies and work environments, it's not like you can just say, hey, I didn't have time, or hey, I couldn't finish this. It's really kind of like delicate to say that, because you're expected
Yeah.
to be an individual that have kind of like prioritized effectively your time. Whenever you feel like you really need others help, I would say reach out to your peers and or to your manager, obviously, and just be like, hey, heads up, I know this is coming up for tomorrow, I'm not probably going to have a final product, I'm going to present what I have. I know it, maybe it's not like the best what I can do, but I would, need some extra help. And
Mm.
that's like a very, extreme case. But that sometimes happen. And there are some times where like there are personal situations, like you just needed to go to emergency, or you just needed to, assist, I don't know, like a friend because of something like really bad happened. And I would say like whenever these situations happen, just like communicate that straight away to your manager so people can just like jump in and like support you.
Wow, that's awesome. And I think that's something everybody struggles with is the fact of, just reach out to people. Avoid that, oops, I didn't make that moment. Because it's way easier if you email like your manager like a day before. Like, hey, I have like 70% done. I was wondering, I have in these blocks. Don't wait till, the next Scrum meeting or planning meeting, whatever, to say, yeah, I couldn't do that, but I also didn't let anyone know. So
Right.
I love that. I love that pre-announcement that there might be some complications, so we can plan a mitigation plan, right?
Right. 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 I mean, we're dealing with like, I would say like complex products, and it's, if you think that you're not going to be able to deliver, just be super open and seek resources if you cannot do it by yourself, or if you think it's like impossible to
Mm-hmm.
to um commit to a date that everyone had agreed on. And that has sometimes happened. Like I would say that for some projects, everyone agrees on a date, like, oh, by this day we need to kind of have everything like ready. Um, and yeah, there's times, like in project management, we have something like that's called the scope creep. Like the
Stove?
problem is that scope creep. So like
A scope.
whenever you have, yes, so
Mm-hmm.
whenever the scope changes a lot, that just means that we are maybe like adding more complexity to the project, and then those deliverables and those dates that everyone had agreed on were are expected to change, but sometimes they don't. So it's like, okay, if we really need to deliver by this date and the scope has changed, how can we make sure that we're gonna work 100% to reach to the same date? So it's like, okay, the managers or like leadership would ask you, okay, so now how many resources you need extra for you to still deliver on the same date? Like we're asking more, or you're just having the same amount of time. So then you need to say, okay, like I would need, you know, extra amount of money, I would need more headcount, whatever you might need. But it's just like that mindset. I would say that in Amazon, there are times where the like dates are fixed, and they would just ask you how many extra resources you need for this project. So that's a different way of approaching things, but definitely something super realistic.
I love that way to, you know, decide decide how which the date is gonna be. Like I
Yeah.
never thought about that before. Like, do you need more resources or more time? There is a trade-off there, of course, and decide. Okay, if you cannot delay the deadline, then of course you're gonna need more resources. But then again, that won't happen if you don't reach out to people, right?
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah, as
love.
long as like you're clear, I think you're gonna be fine.
And also about deadlines, I remember you mentioning about in the sense of prioritization. I love that you mentioned that sometimes we set dates because we need a date. Otherwise, we don't have a direction to work for. So maybe realize that some of those dates are maybe supposed to be changed, as you mentioned. There are like, I mean, of course, there are like the priority first, but
Yep.
then you can also change them because it's a date that probably won't have the same impact that an actually deadline that it has a purpose to be there. So far in
Right.
the list, I have balance, I have prioritization based on customer impact and deadline, but now I also have deadline question mark because that's
Yes.
literally
Yeah, I would say like that depends on the company, that depends on the product, depends on a lot of things. And sometimes like it has happened to me that I'm like, oh, I think that something is like really fixed. And then I ask and people it's like, no, it's okay if you deliver by Monday. So you should always ask and do not be like kind of like afraid of, oh, this person is gonna think that I have not kind of like have this ready, or like, oh, I might be kind of like seen as I'm not delivering. But it's like it's always okay to ask. Um, and if that person just tells you, no, you need to deliver by today, then you just like, you already kind of like confirm that. Um, but if you're maybe, waiting on someone's else input and that person happened to be out of the office, you can just tell the person that is hoping to receive something for you, like, hey, I have everything ready, I just wanted to kind of like double check this was this person is out of the office, do you want me to give you what I have as of today, might not be entirely complete because I'm missing this confirmation, or do you prefer that we kind of like sync on Monday with all of the information kind of like confirmed from my end? It's like giving options to people.
Hmm. Okay, so now the options are changing. Now, not only you can ask for more resources, you can ask for more time, or you can ask for a smaller deliverable.
Yeah, I mean, everything depends on the type of project and the type of people
Hmm.
you're dealing with. If it's something like really simple, like someone is expecting you to deliver some information, you might just ask that because it's like, okay, it's like a peer. It's something that they're just gonna work on. But if you're talking about, you know, like um like a huge warehouse that needs to be delivered by a date because of forecast and because of demand and because of all of these things, then that date is not flexible, and then you will need the resources. But yeah, it depends on the problem, I would say,
All right.
or the project.
Yeah, completely makes sense. Now, I would like to go deeper in focus. I would love to hear how do you, I mean, let's say you have a clear task that doesn't involve necessarily a meeting or email, because we have
Hmm.
a divided time on emails, email slash communications, a divided time on
Hmm.
meetings, and then a time on actually an actual task.
Uh-huh.
So
Like working on stuff, yes.
yeah, working on something that, great time of the day where you're finally sitting on your, you don't have any meetings, you don't have an email to respond, you can actually work on whatever project was assigned to you. I
Right.
would like to hear, what is your strategy? I mean, has anything to do with anything else you have mentioned so far, and how that looks like?
So are you referring to how do I kind of like work on
Mhm.
like finishing up my tasks, or are you asking on kind of
Concent-
like how to divide up my time?
okay, that also works. I mean, time division could be I mean, have you heard about something called Pomodoro, for instance?
Ah, yes, yeah, like the task manager app.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the strategy where you work 25 minutes on something, like
And then you
focus
change.
100% on that something,
Yeah.
and then it's you win 5 minutes of break. Like literally you
Hmm.
win. So you have that incentive. So I was wondering if you have one of kind of like your own techniques for concentration that you would like to share. Or do you remember what is the best time that you remember like you were working like, on fire?
At Amazon, we have something that is called like Amazon Chime, which is like, I would say like a Slack, and Microsoft Teams. It's like the way we communicate internally.
Mhm.
Um, and there are times where you're like, okay, now I have, a solid 2 hours for me to work on stuff and get things done. But then people start asking you and like question, like, asking you this, asking you that, and then that just means you're not focusing on what you're thinking of doing and accomplishing. You're just kind of like devoting your attention on, answering these people. So I would either close my messaging app and really focus on what I need to finish, or I would, well, we have something that it's like a status. So if I like available or I'm not available, um, if I'm in not disturb. So I would put myself in not disturb, because that just tells everyone like, oh, maybe she's working on on like a really important thing and she doesn't want any distractions. So if you put yourself in not disturb, you're kind of not gonna receive any
Mhm.
notification. So I would sometimes like do this, just to make sure I am entirely focusing on what I need to, work. Obviously, there are times where even in not disturb, I receive, messages from people that I need to answer, but that's okay. And, it's something that you just need to kind of like work with.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And I love that because I actually um I was listening to this podcast the other day. They were mentioning like they actually were talking about a couple of things about focus. And I actually would love to hear your take on this. And they basically said you can plan for distraction. Like you can
Yeah, you
plan
can.
ahead. Hmm.
Yes. I mean, that's a really, okay. So, um, during this first weeks, I would say that my schedule has been just packed with meetings and meetings and meetings. And I would see myself, if I kind of like take my calendar and sum all of the like the a 1 hour time slots that I'm in meetings versus the ones that I'm actually working, I would say that in a 5-day week, I would be in meetings 4 days and I would be working 1 day. That's just like, completely crazy. And I have talked to my manager, and I showed him my schedule, and I was like, hey, this is like happening. Like, what do you think? Like, how can I overcome this problem? And his answer was like, yeah, Andrea, like, that's something that, working from home has just like being really challenging for everyone, because a lot of things, like, we don't have those kind of like hallway conversations. You don't have that ability of like going to someone's cube and ask something. You don't have that ability to like catch up with someone over lunch, right? And because of that, there are some times that when you just need to like schedule meetings because you just need to talk to people or connect. Um so as weeks have passed, I found myself like, I did this exercise actually today, and I just like put my calendar, kind of understand what are the meetings for, like kind of put that in a relationship with what are my main responsibilities, like job responsibilities, and map it out and understand what percentage I'm spending my time in things that are value added to my job responsibilities. And then, like, after doing this exercise, I was like, wow, I'm like really surprised. Spending all of this time in maybe non-value added activities. And then I ask myself, okay, so what are the inputs and outputs of these meetings? Like, if I'm in a meeting, what am I gonna contribute, and what are the things that I'm gonna take out from that meeting? And that's something that was really valuable for me, because after doing that, I was like, okay, well, maybe this meeting I decide not to attend. I can put myself as tentative, and then I can consume that meeting notes. So they would say, they would send out the meeting notes 2 hours or like the day after, and I can just go to these notes and kind of like filter to what I need to know, and that's it. So either you can consume a meeting note, or you can consume any type of, yeah, I don't know, dashboard, if there is anything that the team um, might release. Um, or kind of like understanding that if you need to attend, then it's because you're actually taking something valuable from the meeting, or just you need to be like present. That's like my key. And back to your question, or like concern or highlight about having distraction and planning for distraction, I would say that's something super valuable for me. It's just like kind of scheduling and blocking my calendar for like a 15-minute break, like a 30-minute break during the day, for me to kind of like get out of my apartment and just like walk, or like, go to like a rooftop, or like whatever, whatever it might be, but just don't be sitting staring at my computer. That's something that it's needed to avoid burning out, because I would say that working from home for me just started like 5 weeks ago, but I think that it's going to be something that will stay until like probably next year, at least for my company.
All right. All right. No, I love it because now the things are changing a little bit, and this is my theory so far. Uh, I love lists, by the way. As you talk, I try to, come up with some kind of like list of stuff you need to pay attention to or whatever. And it seems to be we have two lists basically. There is one that talks about the things you need to pay attention to, and there
Mm.
is the how to maximize those things. And it seems to
Right.
me we have emails, we have meetings, we have responsibilities or tasks, deadlines per se. Then we have opportunity to work times, and there is a break time.
Yeah.
Now, for those five things,
I would add like
mhm,
internal communication, like Microsoft Teams, Amazon Chime, Slack. People just like send you a message. It's not an email. It's like more informal than an email, but it's still very valid in any company.
direct message,
Yes.
DMs.
People would, yeah, DMs pretty much.
But yeah, all right, cool. So we have those six things. No, five, not six. Yeah, we have six things. And for each of those things, you were mentioning about the importance of prioritization. Sitting, if you're gonna start answering emails, which ones do I want to actually answer first? If
Mhm.
I'm gonna have 10 meetings, which ones are actually I have to go? If I'm gonna do a task, which one I'm gonna do first? Then again, deadline, customer impact analysis. For work, same thing. Breaks, same thing. I mean, you need to prioritize. Well, I'm not sure if that includes prioritization, but then there are also the ends. Which ones you're gonna answer first?
Yeah.
Then the second phase for those six things as well is planning. I mean, in which part of your day those things are gonna be. I mean, you're gonna spend a little bit time in the morning for this. The meetings are usually the biggest set stuff because you cannot modify when the meetings are. Well, sometimes you can, but most of the time you can't. But yeah,
Yeah.
planning and then execution. How you execute in each of those things? Are you actually 100% in on those things? And I mentioned this because you mentioned, for instance, in the part of executing in meetings, you need
Yep.
to decide, are you gonna be 100% in this meeting,
Yeah.
or I'm gonna take a minute and say, hey, I'm gonna take 5 minutes. I'm not gonna be 100% in this meeting because I need to answer a, very urgent email, and then I'm gonna come back.
Yeah.
But finally,
I
uh,
mean, all of those
mhm,
things that you're saying are 100% valid. Like I found myself, or like I usually find myself, um, in a literally like a 8 to 12, for example,
mhm,
PM day, where from 8 to 12 I have back-to-back meetings.
mhm,
So, and some of the times, like some meetings are just like, they just like are running a little bit over, and then you're kind of like already late to the next one. So you just decide if you're gonna drop off or you're gonna kind of like join the next one. And there has been times that I just need to say, in the chat, like, oh, be right back. Because there are times you just need to drink water, eat something, go to the bathroom. You just need to, kind of like make also time for yourself. And I feel like that's
breaks.
acceptable. Like as long as you kind of like let people in the meeting know, like, hey, I'm gonna step out for like 5 minutes, and then you just like put your video off, and then just like mute yourself. You're fine. Like people are gonna see that, and they're not gonna call you out if they had a question, for example, for you. And back to your point, like I feel like there are also meetings where I am not 100% required, like I'm maybe not kind of like sharing my video and I'm just like listening to, and I'll just do some other work. And if I listen to any buzzword, like something that I'm interested from that meeting, I'll just like change my attention to that meeting. I have like 3 screens, like my laptop and 2 other monitors, so that's why, like, I can put it in different screens. Or if I listen to any buzzwords like Andrea, and I would just like whoop and switch my
Buzzwords, and a
attention
good
back.
term.
Yes. So I would say that, because if not, like, it's pretty much impossible. Like if as I said before, like if I'm 4 days in meetings and 1 day actually doing work, like it's almost impossible.
Wow. Yeah, no, I
But
can.
now I'm working on it. Like I'm putting myself tentative in on some of the meetings that I don't exactly need to be there. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing. There is as for everything, there is a learning curve, and I
Right.
think we are all learning how to work remote, and especially more than learning how to work remote, how to deal with the complications that working remote brought, like the fact that now you have like meetings like every second of the day. So,
Yes.
so yeah, totally makes sense. So I will add then one last thing to the list of things you need to do with the list of responsibilities or times of the day, and it's communication. I will say then I think that's something you, I don't know, highlighted a lot. Like communicate about the fact if you're not able to respond an email, communicate about the fact that I'm gonna respond to you in a couple of minutes maybe.
Yeah.
If you cannot go to a meeting, communicate about that. Or if you need to leave a meeting, communicate about that. If there is a task, as you mentioned, that's not going to be done on the deadline, communicate about that, because they could, they can or change the deadline or give you more resources or change the requirements of the deadline. Then
Yep.
for work times, communicate about that to people. Like for instance, I kind of like set boundaries where people know if I'm working, because I literally tell people I'm about to start a pomodoro, which means
Mm-hmm.
like I'm gonna be working for 25 minutes. And if someone comes to my desk, I'm working right now from home. Like this happens on my home, and someone comes to my desk and asks for something. I do the what is called the stop, explain, or something technique. Which basically I forgot the name. Basically, if someone comes, tell them, okay, I'm working on something right now. It's very important. Can I come back to you in 10 minutes? Because you can see the timer and you know that you're gonna stop focusing in 10 minutes.
Right.
So communicate about work, communicate about breaks. Say I'm gonna go to the bathroom 1 second, or I need to take 15 minutes of work right now. Communicate about that, and communicate about DMs. If there's someone like DMing you, tell them, okay, I'm gonna text you back in a minute or text you back in an hour, and then follow up. Don't forget to follow up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
And I
promise
feel
something.
like, yeah, like I think that after you're saying all of this, people would, people can like make this counter argument like, oh, but why do you need to communicate that much? And well, the thing is that I would say one of the challenges of working from home is that you you tend to silo yourself. And in this type of companies, or in any type of company, you should be very clear, and you should be kind of like open to make these channels of information, because you can work siloed. You can't. um like the more information you share, the more aligned people are. It's like better to avoid any type of complications in the future, like, oh, you didn't say this, oh, this wasn't
Mm-hmm.
communicated, oh, this wasn't established, oh, we weren't aligned. So I would say that if there is over communication, that's a good problem to have. It's better to I sometimes, like, I would chime people, like communicate, like, DM people, like, hey, this is my understanding of this and that. I'm triple checking here, could you confirm? And people will say yes, okay, then I can just like jump in. um
Hmm.
but yeah, I would say that's over communication during working from home times. It's a good problem to have. Better to go over communicate than just take for granted, or just kind of like, oh yeah, I thought that you were gonna work on that, that's why I didn't do it. No. That's kind
Hmm.
of like, that cannot happen.
I like that technique of paraphrasing. Okay, if I'm understanding. this is what you meant. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's okay. Like in a work from home, you know, environment, there are times you're in a meeting and then people, you know, someone may just have come into someone's bedroom or like office, and it's okay. Communication, like Wi-Fi signal, you know, kind of like Wi-Fi strands also kind of like get low, and it's okay to be like, oh, wait a second, could you repeat that again? Or hey, I'm sorry, you kind of like your voice broke off, can you just repeat that again? Or hey, I'm not following. And I feel like sometimes people are afraid of doing this because it's like, ah, no, like people are just gonna think that, you know, I'm like not getting it, like I'm not that smart. And for me, I'm like, no, I would say asking questions, it's a great thing. And like asking, whenever you're mastering that, it's like you know and you learn how to ask the right questions and like how to frame it. Like always understand why is someone asking, like what's the background of that question. It's super helpful. um or if, you know, people ask you like, oh, can you tell me what is this about, and then you would say, this is this, but why are you asking? And it's not like a bad thing, it's not like a rude thing, because it's not about being curious, but it's more about understanding why or how is the other person going to consume that information. Because sometimes depending on that background info, you can give more or give less information to your, you know, to the person that's asking you.
Oh no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's why people actually study communication and organization communication. I mean,
Right.
lot a lot to improve on that sense. There is a lot as well, for instance, in a meeting, listening skills, like don't try to there is something that a lot of people do when hearing is to start what is called rehearsing in their mind what they're gonna say next. When this
Yes.
person actually shut up, so I'm gonna say this or stuff like that. And there's like that. There's a bunch of stuff in communication that you need to practice to be a good listener and to be a good communicator. And I love you tackle a couple of those. Now, I'm gonna play the devil advocate here. Well, more like a devil advocate. I'm gonna say and clarify. Over communication is not the same that over promising.
Right.
And
It's not the same.
mhm. And I want to hear what is your take on this. I mean, a lot of people say the typical phrase is better to under promise and over deliver that over promise and under deliver.
Yeah. I would say be very clear. Like if you are going to take, you know, like this new role or like this new project, um, or you just like, you know, kind of someone's gonna hand off to you that, you
Mhm.
just need to understand to what extent you're able to um, you know, work on that project to the highest standards. Like that's what Amazon kind of like pursues. And if you can't, like if you see that you're not going to be able to work 100% on that, or like you're, you know, with your current workload you can't commit to it, I mean, like I would say just straight up talk to your manager. Like, hey, you know, given my workload or given my the projects I'm already working on, I would say that I'm not gonna be able to give my 100% on this. And your manager will be like, oh, but why do you say this? Like, what's the rationale behind it? Like, what's the argument? And those are the things that I feel they're super important whenever you're taking on extra projects, because as you said, like it's better for you to mitigate the risks of, hey, I'm warning you, I'm not sure that I can, you know, completely um, deliver this by this date or whatever on time or to the highest standards. And then your manager can understand what's like your workload and then might, you know, have an extra headcount for the next year, or then you can have more support if you need to optimize um, your current processes, like whatever with whatever software, or just like make room for that. I would say communicate, just like be clear, like, hey, yes, I can take the project if no one else can, but I might not, you know, be able to deliver to 100%. What we can do about it? Like, can I have support from other people? Can you give me more resources? Whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe trade off a previous project you were working on, right? Like, okay, I might be able to commit to this, but I need to reduce my previous workload.
Right. I think that something that was challenging for me to understand working at AR is that um, sometimes you might not have 100% of the information that you need for you to take a decision, but we have something that is called like the 70-30 rule. And whenever you're dealing with decisions that need to be taken in a fast or yeah like quick manner, or like they're just very important and just need to act on spot, it's okay to have like 70% of the information. And that's something that for me was kind of like weird to understand, because it's not a concept that I was kind of used to before. I would be like, until I have all of the details, I cannot take a decision, or like until I have everything figured out, I am not able to proceed. And yeah, this is just this company's culture. It's different, but sometimes like whenever you are in like really fast environments, you just need to, if you have 70% of the information and you think you're 100% accurate, go for it. You have like that 30%, uncertainty.
I like
But yeah,
it.
you can read more about
Yeah,
it online. There are,
s-
different things online
they're
about it.
very open about it. The
Yep.
70-30. Okay, sounds
70
interesting.
30 rule. I mean, I haven't Googled it, but I know it's like something that goes with like the leadership principles.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean,
Yes.
especially because you need to understand. I mean, if this is a fast-paced environment, there are some compromising to make, and in this case, in the decision making, was that like you need to know the it's enough for you to know the 70% of information to make a decision or not. I'm curious about it. Like, has there been a case like someone complained like this wasn't the 70%, it was like 20%?
No, I'd say like people don't just like do it right like that, but it's more about feeling confident. It's like, okay, so given all the information that we have, are we okay to say that, I mean, we might not have the whole picture, but if we do have like the 70% of it, um, we can just like move forward. And I just like Googled, and there is like this article in like the Bezos 70% rule for decision making. So yeah, you can go online and read more about it, but it's interesting. It's something that I was never used to. But yes, it's important to highlight that sometimes that's what you have, that's how you operate.
That's awesome. And I have for you 7 steps. And I want, to wrap up a little bit what we had talked so far. I want
Yes.
to, I'm going to repeat stuff I already said, but I'm going to repeat it now with numbers. So, about work being emails, meetings, tasks, / potential new projects, work times, breaks, and DMs. Those are the main things you worry about in a day, usually in workplace. So about those things, there are 7 things you need to make sure to be doing well. One, prioritization, completely important. There's some stuff you might discover that can reduce your workload somehow. Second, planning. I mean, it's very good and all, prioritizing, but if you don't plan, you don't know exactly how many stuff you will be able to do in one day, so you can actually calculate how much time it's going to take you to finish everything that you need to finish. So yeah, planning. And you can also do that on cyplo.com, by the way. But yeah, that's a side note. Third, execute. I mean, when you're executing, try to do either a 100% focus or use the buzzword technique that you were mentioning. If you're in a fast-paced environment where you need to compromise, then again, there is a compromising stuff. Of course, people say you need to focus in 100% in something, but I guess if there's no way you can focus 100% in something, try to find a way so you can focus 90% on something, and be ready to switch to the other task, because that's not multitasking. That's called task switching. That's what people
Yeah.
say. Like, there is no multitasking, there is task switching, and there is a cost of time and concentration on switching between tasks. So make sure that it's as efficient as possible. Fourth, communication. Communicate constantly about everything that we just said. If there is an email that you need to, it's the example of the email. Like, if you cannot answer the email right now, and it's like a long answer, then it's gonna take you like a 15-minute sit down and write it. You can reply and say, I'm gonna reply back to you in a couple of minutes. Or the same for DMs, meetings, tasks, work, break, DMs, everything. So communication, communicate. 5, follow up, because we're talking about people might come to distract you, or in this case, if in the previous step you communicated that you were going to answer in a couple of minutes, you need to follow up. And for that, probably you want to put a timer or something, or reminder in your phone. In the instant you say, I'm going to reply back to you, maybe that's the moment where you need to put a timer. Like, in 15 minutes, I need to do something that I need not to forget about. So step 6. No. Okay, I lost one
Yeah, I
step.
think you were in the 6th.
Follow up. No, okay, yeah. The 7 was that, I don't know what is the 6, because I wrote it very ugly. Oh yeah. So the 7 was decision making. Sometimes you need to make decisions, and for that you could use the 70-30%, 70-30 rule. That's one example of making decisions. You can always go back to step 1 and check out your prioritization, but decisions need to be made eventually, and you cannot stay stuck in the about to make a decision phase, otherwise there is no progress. So sometimes you need to make a decision, like for instance you were mentioning deadlines, like there's a temporal deadline to focus on, and if you are not done by the deadline, probably the decision needs to be changed, but the decision needs to be made, an initial decision needs to be made, and for that there are rules like the 70-30% rule. And yeah, I remember now what the 6th step was. And be careful of over promising.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that the only thing to add would be, kind of like having a mentality, like a mindset that you should be proactive, not reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
proactive on kind of like, okay, what are like this project's risks, or what are the, this project's need by dates, what, being proactive about something that might come into the future, instead of just like getting everything like, oh yeah, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and then just like kind of working on it. That's being reactive. So as long as you're proactive, you should be fine.
I love that, because that's actually something that I was listening to this podcast the other day, actually, and they were talking about a great example of being reactive is, for instance, once you grab your phone and you connect to the internet, you start being reactive because you start having to deal with stuff, have to answer to people, having to stuff. So there's this nice space in the morning where you have still the chance to be proactive, because you're not reacting to messages, you're not doing the prioritization based on other people, you're being proactive
Correct.
on decisions you already made yourself, and you won't have any distractions if you stay in that sense. So that's something you need to also to bring to your work moments, like being proactive, like understand if you're gonna work, that means being proactive, not being half proactive, half reactive, and that's something else you need to focus on. So yeah, I love
Right.
that 8 mindset about being proactive. So 1, prioritization; 2, planning; 3, execution; 4, communication; 5, following up; 6, not over promising; 7, making decisions; and 8, being proactive above all.
Right. I think
Sounds good.
you just mentioned, yeah, that's it.
All right. I think we have a good list. So I want to give the chance to the audience if you have any questions for Andrea. Any, yeah, if you have any questions, you can type it down on the chat, or if you want, I can unmute you and you can talk. So otherwise, we're gonna wrap up by mentioning the list one last time because it needs to look nice for because it's a recording, and I need to grab that nice part when the list is set. You know, and if you have any final thoughts, Andrea, this is gonna be awesome. So yeah, I'm opening right now the opportunity. All right.
Yeah, I would say like a final comment, just keep in mind that people you work with are people, are human beings. And if you're new to a company, if you're just getting, into a new environment, a new community, just try to get or start those relationships with your peers. It's not about just like, oh, can you give me this? Oh, can you give me that? And it's not about only like
Mm,
work related. Just try to also, oh, like, are you a mother? Are you a father? Like, what do you like? Do you do kite surf? Do you play tennis? Do you run? Just try to get personal in those connections, because that's gonna set you up in the future, to get things on a faster way, and people won't react to your messages like, oh, here we go, this girl again, like asking me for all of this.
mhm.
They would be like, oh, hey, how are you, and just like ask for their weekends, or just try to
Uh,
engage in a personal note, and then just
oh,
like be
Andrea from
like,
Venezuela.
hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a lot of people that just have really cool things to
Mm-hmm.
offer, and then you're like, oh, we connect, we also have like those interests, like the same type of interests, like, and then you have this, besides work, you have something else to talk about. And that's super important working from home, because then it's different compared to what we have on a office scenario.
I love it. I love it. And you will just add two more things to the list. Actually, two more steps. Add one to the worry list. You should also worry not, it's not the word, focus on networking. That's a space that
Yes.
you're going to need to think about in your day, that you'll make sure that balancing networking with emails, meetings, tasks, work breaks, DMs, which is what we were mentioning. And the other two steps you just add is the ninth step with try to have empathy in everything you're doing. Empathy
Right.
is like the biggest thing. You imagine the best thing first. Like, it's not like this person is not responding to me because he's a jerk. Maybe it's because he's stuck in home with the children and there is nowhere for the children to go and they need to take care of something. So
Yeah.
empathy. And 10th, focus on what develop and goes along with networking, relationships. Work is like a huge opportunity for you to develop mentorships, develop mentors.
Yes, that's a really important point.
Hmm. And as you know, in Cyplo, we focus on mentorships. So it had to be said. It's important for you to also be developing nice mentorships and apprenticeships. Because here's the thing. You could, I mean, the best way to learn is to teach. And the best way to learn is also to find someone to shorten your learning curve. So it's the two things. If you can have mentors and apprentices within your organization, that's something that is going to help you not only with your working under pressure, but also with your shortening your learning curve for working under pressure, maybe.
Right. I think in the comments we have something from Claudia, and
Mm-hmm.
she's saying, listen twice as much as you talk. That's why we have two ears and just one mouth. And I feel like that's so important. And
Wow.
that's so true.
That's a good phrase. Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's how we're going to phrase the part of communication now. Listen twice as much as you talk because you have two ears and just one mouth. Perfect. I like it, Claudia. Thank you. So, yeah, other than that, I'm going to repeat the list one last time and let me know if there's any final thoughts. Because you see, every time I repeat the list, there's something else like that's out.
Yes.
And we want to make sure to have the final list of working under pressure. So, so you need to, there are a couple of things you need to have a balance on, and that's the list of balance. The list of balance is 1, emails, 2, meetings, 3, tasks slash new projects, 4, work times, 5, breaks, 6, DMs and direct communication, and 7, networking times. Those are the 7 things you need to have a balance in your day. Now, how to have a balance? There is the list of 10 steps. And one is prioritization, two is planning, three is execution, fourth is communication, or AKA listen twice as much as you talk. That's why
Yes.
we have 2 ears and just one mouth. Six is not overpromising. Five is following up. I forgot five. Seven is making decisions, even if those are temporal ones. Eight is being proactive above all. Nine is empathy. Always have empathy. And 10, develop relationships. Include relationship in whatever you're doing. There is a relationship in between. So yeah,
Yep.
focus on that as well. Anything else?
No,
What do you
I
think?
think you got it all.
All right. Well, Andrea, thank you so much. This list is gonna be, you know, perfect for a lot of people. I think you help a lot of people. Um, Thank you so much for everyone to join and for influencing how the talk goes. And yeah, let's make sure to make 2020 the best year of our life. There's still 50% of the year left. Let's make it the best year of our life, and let's make sure to work better under pressure. So yeah, we can keep growing and we can keep shortening our learning curve and delivering while maintaining our wellness, our career wellness, which sometimes people don't prioritize. But remember, above all, life is about balance, and life is about, learning. So keep that balance and learn from this list so you can work under pressure better and make 2020 the best year of your life. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you.